أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير. وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا وعظيمنا وقدوتنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم عبده ورسوله صفيه وخليله، أرسله الله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره الكافرون. أما بعد، يقول الله تعالى في قرآنه الكريم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. We begin as always in the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, the most gracious, the most merciful. We testify that there is none worthy of worship but He, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His slave and His messenger. And we send His peace and His blessings upon our most beloved, our most perfect role model, Sayyid al-Qawnayn al-Sadiq al-Amin, Khatim al-Nabiyyin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and upon His family, and upon His companions, and upon all of those who follow His example until the final day. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us among them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam once said in a hadith narrated by Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhuma, أَلَا كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. That indeed every single one of you is a shepherd, and every one of you is responsible for his flock. In this hadith he says, وَرَجُلُ رَاعٍ عَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ وَالْمَرْأَةُ رَاعِيَةٌ عَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِ زَوْجِهَا وَوَلَدِهِ وَهِيَ مَسْئُولَةٌ عَنْهُمْ. That a man is the shepherd over his household, and he's responsible for them. And the woman is responsible for the household and the children of her husband, and she's accountable or responsible for them. And every single one of us, alhamdulillah, we understand this concept. As a man, as a woman, we have our responsibilities, and within our household, as a father, as a husband, as a head of a household, you have a role to play. We have a duty to play. We have this role of a shepherd. Just as a shepherd with his flock of sheep, he guides them, he directs them, he protects them, he takes care of them, he makes sure they don't transgress the boundaries of somebody else's land and take from their grass, for example. Similarly, we have that role as men. With our families, we guide them, we make sure they don't transgress the boundaries of Allah Azza wa Jal, we care for them, we protect them. And we all know this. We feel it ourselves, we see it with other people. You know, for example, we see when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of our families, when there's a child in hospital, you see their parents with this child, the lack of sleep, they don't eat, they sacrifice their time, they take time off work, they expend all of their energy to try to take care of this child. All of their energy, all of their wealth, all of their time, all of their everything to take care of this child. Because we understand this is our responsibility as a man. This is something that I must do in my role as a protector for my family. أَلَا كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you is a shepherd, and every one of you will be accountable in front of Allah Azza wa Jal for the role that you take in caring for your flock. But of course we also know that as men, as Muslims, our role doesn't stop with our family. We all have a role to play for our community, with our society, with our ummah as well. See, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, didn't he say that the example of the believers in their affection, their love, their mercy, their care for one another is what? Mathalul jasad. It's similar to a human body. That when one part of your body, one limb of the body, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, is aching, has disease, the rest of your body has a fever. You're restless, you can't sleep at night. And again, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Some of us might have felt this. When you're sick, you've got a toothache, you've got an infection somewhere, but your entire body responds to this infection. This is the example of the believers, of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That when one part of our ummah, wherever it may be, whether they're local, whether they're halfway across the world, when they suffer, when they face any sort of injury, the entire ummah feels this pain. You see, just as it's part of our role when we care for our families, to make sure that we're in tune with what's happening with them. We notice when they're in pain, we notice when they're struggling, we notice when they're pushing the boundaries, so that we can then fulfill our duties towards them. This is the same thing with the Muslim when it comes to his ummah. Any time that the Muslim Ummah is in pain, it's by definition part of our role as a Muslim Ummah. I have to be in tune with my Ummah. I have to recognize where they are. I have to recognize what they're going through. And I have to feel that pain as well. And not just feel the pain. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that when any one of us sees an evil, فَلْيُغَيِّرُهُ بِيَدِهِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ وَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That if any of us sees an evil anywhere, something we don't like, something affecting our Ummah, it is upon us to change it with our hands. If we can't change it with our hands, with our tongue. If we can't change it with our tongue, then to hate it in our heart. And that is the weakest form of Iman. You see that connection with our Ummah, when we feel that restlessness and that fever, that emotion that we feel, that's just the first part. That emotion in our heart. But it's meant to push us towards action, to improve the situation of whoever we see that's suffering. We don't see our child suffering and then we simply cry ourselves to sleep. We put in the effort to find them the cure, to make sure they don't get sick again. And the same goes for the Muslim with his Ummah. We've all seen over the last couple of weeks the test that Allah Azza wa Jal has put upon our brothers and sisters in North Africa, in Morocco and Libya. I don't like saying natural disasters because this is the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's a test from Allah. We've seen an earthquake that ravaged the people of Morocco. They say 3,000, 4,000 dead. The real numbers are probably a lot larger than that. And thousands of others who have been injured, who have lost everything that they own. We saw a storm a few days later that ravaged through Libya, caused floods. The estimates say 20,000, if not more, dead. And how many tens of thousands injured and have lost everything that they own. And it's part of our duty, the bare minimum as an ummah, that when I see my brothers and sisters, whether they're all the way in North Africa, wherever they are, going through something like that, I feel their pain. And as we said, we don't just feel that pain, but we ask ourselves, what is the meaning of this test from Allah Azza wa Jalla? A lot of us take the attitude when we see things like this. We say this is a test from Allah Azza wa Jalla for those people in that area, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for them. قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. And this is true, it's part of it. And as I was praying for the khutbah, I wondered, is this the right topic to talk about? Khutbah is a once a week opportunity to speak to brothers in the community who are caught up with everything else that we're caught up with. And we need to speak about things that are relevant to us. An earthquake halfway around the world, well, alhamdulillah, the majority of us aren't affected. We saw the events, we felt the emotion, we donated some money, but alhamdulillah, it didn't affect us. Most of us are not from those lands, we haven't lost people that we love. We still have our wealth, we still have our health, alhamdulillah. Nothing has changed for us in the last 2 weeks. And we were able to move on. And this is from the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal. And as a khutbah, there are more relevant things to speak about. You know, it's the issues that affect us every day. Raising our kids, the schools, you know, haram money, your income, where do you get it from? The education system and making sure that your children are protected from the fitna in society. All of these are things that affect us day in, day out. And it's what we want to hear about. But that's exactly where the problem is. If the bare minimum from my connection to my ummah, which is part of our aqeedah and our identity as Muslims, is that I feel the pain when they go through it. If I haven't even felt that, that's where the problem is. You see, the test is for the people in those lands, yes. But it's also a test for the rest of the ummah from Allah Azza wa Jalla to ask you, are you connected to your ummah? Do you suffer from that fever and restlessness as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam described? Or do I simply see it as a number, 6,000 dead, and I move on with my day? This is part of our identity as Muslims. And if I can't even feel the pain with them, then how do I have the heart to stand before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of judgment? Tell him I was part of your ummah, when I haven't even fulfilled that most basic right that my ummah has upon me. Yes, we're on the other side of the world, but this affects us just as much as it affects them. Allah Azza wa Jal tests them. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jal says that we will test you, just as He's testing them, with fear and famine and loss of property and life and provisions, and glad tidings to those who are patient. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep them patient. And we say this is their test, but in reality it's our test as well. The test upon us is to feel their emotion, but then also to understand where is the problem. Because again, yes, from one perspective it looks like disaster from Allah Azza wa Jal is ridden from them. But why does this happen? The disaster is from the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. The destruction, the effects, the consequences You know, there was a man that came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he asked him, should I leave my camel outside the masjid? Or should I tie it up? Should I just leave it and have tawakkul and trust in Allah Azza wa Jal? Or should I tie it up? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, tie up your camel and then have tawakkul on Allah. And we need to ask the question when we see things like this. When we know that Allah Azza wa Jal says that the one who saves one life, it's as if he saved all of humanity. The one who takes one life, it's as if he's taken the life of all of humanity. We know that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he looked at the Kaaba, he said, how beautiful and glorious you are. The drop of blood of one Muslim is more beloved than the Kaaba itself. How many Muslims have lost their lives? And why are the effects so large? Yes, Allah Azza wa Jal tests the believers and He tests those that He loves more than any others. We see these disasters here. We saw the earthquake earlier in the year in Turkey and Syria, one of the worst earthquakes and death tolls that we've seen in decades. We saw the start of Ramadan, earthquakes in Pakistan and India, and again thousands that were affected. We saw last year earthquakes in Afghanistan, again thousands affected. We see the famine that has been ravaging in Yemen, the largest famine, the worst that humanity has seen for how long, and how many tens, hundreds of thousands that have lost their lives as a result. And we say, Ya haram, the situation of the ummah. But we need to stop and analyze. Has our ummah tied its camel? You see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when he said, أَلَا كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you is a shepherd, every one of you will be accountable for his flock. Before he referred to the man and the woman in the household, he looked at the much bigger element in society. He said, فَالْإِمَامُ الَّذِي عَلَى النَّاسِ رَاعٍ وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. That the leader, the ruler who presides over a people, he is the shepherd over his people, and he will be accountable for his flock. And we look at the earthquakes. In Morocco, earthquake of 6.8 magnitude, which is large. But then you compare the death toll, the 3,000, 4,000 official number, to other earthquakes around the world of similar magnitude. The number's out of proportion. And then you look and you see that experts are saying that the collapsed buildings are made from mud bricks and stone and rough wood, and they completely disintegrated immediately. Even though Morocco and the Atlas Mountains are across some of the fault lines, and earthquakes are to be expected in some of these lands. But there was no infrastructure, no preparation, no education among the people. When the earthquakes happened, the people running out onto the streets, huddling on roundabouts, and as a result, the numbers are so huge. We see this storm that was ravaging through the Mediterranean. They call it Storm Daniel. Through the Mediterranean for weeks, across Greece, Spain, Turkey, before it came south to Libya. It was known. Those who were in the meteorology and geography, they knew this storm was coming. And they predicted that it would hit Libya. And they warned the government of Libya. And the government of Libya gathered and they asked themselves, what should we do about this? And they said, should we evacuate the people from the towns? They said, no. Let's leave it as it is. This thunderstorm rips through Libya. It attacks some dams where they store their water. And these dams haven't been serviced for over 20 years. My brothers, imagine you haven't serviced your car for 20 years. The dam that holds the water of the people, not serviced for 20, 21 years. Even though there are millions of dollars allocated towards servicing these dams, hasn't been done. And so when the thunderstorm strikes them, what's going to happen? The dams burst, the floods are up, and the people are dead. This has been predicted for a while. The engineers within Libya themselves have been saying, if this happens, it's a disaster. Was anything done? No. We see when we talk about Turkey and Syria, who are the people that were affected by the earthquake? The Syrian refugees. Why were the numbers so large? Because these people have been living in tents for a decade. So what do you expect is going to happen when the earth shakes below their feet? Is the tent going to hold itself against the tectonic plates? Yes, it's in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal, but have we tied our camels? Why are the Syrian refugees there in the first place? This civil war that's happening, the tyrant over Syria, the lack of support from the rest of the Muslim Ummah, the hundreds of thousands dispersed around the lands, and they're still stuck in tents. And so when an earthquake happens, what do you expect will be the result? We want to talk about Yemen and the famine. But why is that happening? If not for the war being played out between Saudi Arabia and Iran, a proxy war in the lands of Yemen. And so we see hundreds of thousands who are starving and dead. Of course it's going to happen. And so when we don't analyze the situation, and we look at it and say, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ, and we feel a bit of emotion. But have we done the service for our ummah? When we talk about وَالْإِمَامُ عَلَى النَّاسِ, the leader over the people, And what are the leaders of our lands doing? You know, the king of Morocco, where was he when this earthquake happened? For a whole day, he didn't comment. In his $133 million mansion in France. Was he affected by the earthquake? Of course not. When we talk about the leaders of Libya and how they did nothing, no action. Compare this to the leaders that our ummah deserves. The ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The ummah of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. When Umar radiallahu anhu was the Khalifa, the famine broke out, or rather the plague broke out in Bilad al-Sham. And Umar radiallahu anhu, the Sahaba around him knew the ruling from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if there's a land with a plague, you don't enter that land, you don't leave that land. And look at COVID a few years ago, and how our Muslim lands completely mismanaged the situation, and how many hundreds of thousands lost their lives, and lost their business, lost their income, completely destroyed our lands. Umar radiallahu anhu understood, we don't go in, we don't come out. And so he from Medina, without the communication, without the technology we have today, diverted the resources of the ummah to make sure everybody was still fed. Sham was the center of the ummah. It was the largest of the lands, the richest of the lands. He diverted from Egypt to Medina to Persia to Yemen to make sure that the Muslims all had the resources. A famine hit in Medina and the people were starving. Umar radiallahu anhu would not sleep at night. He said, Hayhata, hayhata, anam, how dare you accuse me of sleeping? When one of the Sahaba said to him, I thought you were asleep. He said, if I sleep during the daytime, I've sacrificed the rights of the people. If I sleep at night, I've sacrificed the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal. It was known in his Khilafah, that he wouldn't sleep in his bed ever. He would be seen micro-sleeps on his walking stick, leaning on the wall, or sitting down in the corner, because he cared for the people. When the famine hit in Medina, he ate nothing but bread and oil. He said, how can I eat when my people are starving? This was a leader who cared for his people. When he sent one of the Sahaba to collect the tax from Yemen, he said, collect the tax and distribute it among the people of Yemen. And so he did that. And he came back, leftover change, he gave it to Umar radiallahu anhu. Umar said, what are you doing? This is for the people of Yemen. He said, there's no more people to give the money to. The next year, same thing, but now half the money was left. Umar radiallahu anhu said, this isn't my money, it's for the people of Yemen. He said, there's nobody left to give it to. And in the following year, he collected the zakat, and there was nobody to distribute it to. All of the people were taken care of. Was this because of Umar radiallahu anhu himself? No. It's because the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal has justice. When we implement the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah is the most just. So how do we not achieve justice in the lands? But when we go far away from the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, what do you expect will happen? Yes, some disasters are out of our control. These are in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. But we will achieve the maximum justice that we can achieve in this dunya. We see this happening in our ummah. Ravaging, destroying the people. And yes, they are tested, but the test is also for us. Do we feel that emotion in our hearts? Do we analyze the situation with the respect that it deserves? And does it motivate us towards action? Do we recognize that, yes, these are natural disasters, but the numbers and the damage that we see are a symptom of a much deeper political issue that our ummah faces. May Allah Azza wa Jal unite our ummah. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant justice to those who have been oppressed. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه غفور رحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We can all walk out of here feeling a bit of emotion in our hearts and then go back to our job, get distracted with the dunya, as we do. We're humans, and then nothing comes out of this. But as with every khutbah, and we should make it a goal for ourselves, brothers, every khutbah that we go to, ask yourself, what am I taking out of this and I'm going to change in my life from today? One thing. Inshallah, I'll give a list of a few things that we can do, and we can take from it whatever benefits. And the first is that when we see our ummah in pain, we have to feel that pain. And really ask yourself, do I feel that emotion? Or is it just a number? We desensitize these days. We receive all of the news on our phones, all in the WhatsApp groups, we scroll, 6,000, 10,000, 100,000, it means nothing to us. They're just numbers. But we need to connect. And if we don't have that emotion in our heart, the action will never come. Connect with your ummah. Yes, we're on the other side of the globe. Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with a lot of barakah in our lives. But connect with it. Avoid being desensitized. And the way that we do that is by connecting with the people on the ground. Whether you have family there or you know people that have family, ask them what's going on. Read the stories, watch the stories. Imagine it was your child or your mother trapped in the rubble. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our families. And feel the pain that these people are going through. Once we feel the pain, the second thing to do is to make dua. Dua is the strongest thing that we have. Allah Azza wa Jal is the most powerful, and these natural disasters, so-called, are an indicator of the power of Allah Azza wa Jal. How within a moment, He can shake the ground beneath us. He can send rain and thunder from the skies and destroy everything that these people have known. Allah Azza wa Jal is the most powerful, and this is a reminder of His power. So make glorification of Allah Azza wa Jal and make dua for Him. Ya Allah, have mercy on the dead. Ya Allah, grant shifa and health to those who have been injured. Ya Allah, grant rizq to those who have lost everything that they own. Ya Allah, keep these people steadfast through the trial that they're facing. Ya Allah, don't test us with the same trial. And Ya Allah, unite our ummah and protect us from similar trials in the future. Make dua for them, regularly, specifically. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the ummah was going through something difficult, he would make it a habit to make dua qunut in every single salah. And he would make dua for those that were struggling. The third thing is to let your kids know what's happening. Our children are the next generation of this ummah. And once they're old enough to understand, they need to understand these things. We shouldn't be sheltering them from the realities of the world. We should allow them to know what's happening, to feel the pain with their brothers and sisters, to know what their brothers and sisters are going through, to appreciate their blessings that they have in their life, and to motivate them towards action for the ummah for the rest of their lives. Till now, I remember 2008, when the war in Gaza had just broken out, and my dad calling me down from my room and making me sit with the family to watch the news and see what's happening. And the airstrikes had just started, and they were being slaughtered in the streets. And I was young, but you're old enough that you understand. It goes into traumatized, but it's to understand. Burned in my brain, image of a 10-year-old boy, my age. His mother had just died, and all he had to say in response, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel." These images stay with you. And so my brothers, as fathers, as role models for your children, let them know what's happening and guide the discussion with them. The fourth thing is that once we're aware of what's happening, to donate generously. We need to donate. As I said, our test, we're on the other side of the world, but this is our test as well. So donate generously. Allah has given us the barakah and the blessing of not being in the lands where this fitna is happening. He's protected us from these earthquakes, from these disasters. He's protected us from the tyrants that rule over the Muslim lands. But if we take that protection, that blessing from Allah Azza wa Jal and do nothing with it, we've betrayed the barakah and the blessing that Allah Azza wa Jal has given us. And we've betrayed our responsibility to our ummah. Donate generously. And when you donate, not just a tap of the phone, not just a swipe of the card, think about what you're donating towards. Think about which charity am I going through? Where's the money going? What's it being spent on? Put effort into it, just as you'd put effort into investing in a business. You're investing in your akhirah. And so put effort to know where your money is going and do it generously. Don't hold back. Just as we would spend if it was our own child who was sick or suffering. Number 5, once we've donated, is to analyze, understand the issues. And sorry, just on the point of donation, yes, they need our money, but we need the rewards of the donation more than they need the money. As we said, Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us. We will be accountable for that blessing. And we need the rewards more than they need our money. And so donate with the intention of forgiveness and rewards from Allah Azza wa Jal. We need to analyze and understand the issues deeply, not just superficially. Don't be one of those people that looks and says, natural disaster, qadarallahu ma sha'a fa'al, and you move on. It's our responsibility to our ummah to know what they're going through, to feel their suffering, and to do something to change their situation. And so if we don't even know what's happening, we won't do anything to help them. And the final and the 6th point is that we need to work to improve the situation of the ummah. The best service that you can do for the people suffering in Morocco and Libya, or the Muslims suffering wherever they are in the world, the best service that you can do to them is to carry the da'wah for the implementation of Islam. If we do that, the solution is better than just putting a band-aid over the problem. We try to cure the problem. The problem that our ummah faces is a poor distribution of resources. It's tyrannical rulers. It's division of our lands. It's the lack of implementation of Islam and the justice of Islam. As we said, when Islam is implemented, Allah Azza wa Jal is the most just, so we implement the justice of Islam. We need to work towards that. If we're busy, caught up with our work, with our family, with our dunya all the time, and we do nothing for the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, when will our ummah ever come out of this situation? But it's too big. We're talking empires, we're talking civilizations, societies. What can I do to change? What's going to happen if we don't even work? We see with earthquakes how powerful Allah Azza wa Jal is. And what Allah Azza wa Jal asks of us, وَإِن تَنْصُرُ اللَّهِ يَنْصُرُكُمْ. If you sacrifice for Allah, if you support the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will support you. But it comes down to us. What am I doing for this deen? So work towards the unity of the ummah. Work towards the appointment of leaders like Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. And if we do that, when the disasters happen, we can say we've tied our camel. May Allah Azza wa Jal have mercy on those who have passed, and may Allah Azza wa Jal make us among those who work towards the unification of the ummah. عباد الله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت وسلمت وباركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم ارحم أموات المسلمين، اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم انصر المسلمين المستضعفين في كل مكان، ارحم أمواتهم واشف أمراضهم وانصرهم على أعدائهم أعداء الدين. عباد الله إن الله يأمركم بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقم الصلاة.